What do great men such as Archimedes, Leonardo da Vinci, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Edison all have in common? They were all engineers.
An engineer is a professional who applies the principles of science to solve problems in society.
Rights and responsibilities of engineers and the public. Most people are unable to explain what an engineer is when asked. Inventors from times prior to modern engineering school and licensure who designed or invented with the application of math and science are now considered engineers. Engineers today and throughout history have shaped society as we know it because their designs often directly affect the public. Consequently, it is and has been the responsibility of engineers to conduct their work in an ethical manner so as not to abridge the public's right to safety. Additionally, the public has the responsibility to use products as their design intended to avoid putting themselves in unnecessary danger. This responsibility is often seen in warnings and disclaimers on product instructions, room capacity signs in public places, and weight limits on elevators. The legal responsibility of engineers dates back as far as the Code of Hammurabi, an ancient set of laws written in 1800 BC. It prescribed harsh punishments for building designers and builders of structures that harmed citizens. If a building collapsed and killed anyone, its designer and/or builders were executed. In the United States, building codes and engineering requirements began to be implemented after the occurrence of disasters due to the lack of such regulations. The Great Molasses Flood of Boston is one such example. An enormous tank had been hastily built to contain molasses without proper engineering. On January 15, 1919, the tank failed, shooting rivets and unleashing a 2.3 million gallon wave of molasses. 21 people died and 150 more were injured. This incident led to stricter building regulations, as well as the need for structural certification by engineers nationwide. Today, engineering design is regulated by building codes and engineering licensure requirements. The purpose of building codes is to set minimum requirements for public structures in order to protect the health, welfare, and safety of the public. Engineers have the right to perform their work in ways that benefit mankind, which has allowed them to greatly improve the quality of living and aid societal development throughout history. An excellent example of this is the creation of sewer systems. In ancient Rome, engineers designed advanced plumbing systems. Without its clean water supply and wastewater disposal systems, Rome could not have developed into such a great empire. The importance of sewer systems could be seen even more clearly centuries later in London, where tens of thousands of people died from outbreaks of diseases such as cholera, diarrhea, typhoid, and dysentery due to drinking contaminated water. When the cause of the illness was discovered, civil engineers began working to create an extensive sanitary sewer system. As a result of its implementation, outbreaks of the illnesses in areas with sewers disappeared. Engineers can and have greatly improved humanity's quality of life in countless ways, but some have also harmed people with mistakes, negligence, and unethical practice. Examples of major engineering disasters include the 1919 Boston molasses flood, the 1986 Challenger space shuttle explosion, and the 2007 Minneapolis bridge collapse. The most severe engineering mistake in United States history, in terms of death and injury, was the Hyatt Regency Hotel walkway collapse in Kansas City, Missouri. The Hyatt Regency Hotel, less than a year old, was the newest and grandest hotel in Kansas City at the time of the disaster. It regularly held popular tea dance parties in its atrium on Friday evenings. During one of these parties, on July 17, 1981, partners were happily dancing across the floor, while others watched from the second, third, and fourth floor suspended walkways. Without warning, the fourth floor skywalk failed, collapsing onto the second floor skywalk directly below it. Both crashed onto the party below with a combined weight of 64 tons of concrete and steel. Due to the circumstances, rescuing survivors proved difficult and dangerous. Hundreds of people were buried alive, critically injured, and unable to move. Many would soon die without medical attention. Worse yet, many were in danger of drowning due to a large water pipe broken by the collapse. Many who survived the initial collapse died before they could be rescued. 114 people were killed, and over 200 more were injured. Those who died and were injured can be counted, but those affected by the disaster, the rescue workers, those at the height who only witnessed the collapse, families and friends of the dead and injured, and even whole communities were affected. One devastated community was the Oakland area of Topeka, Kansas. At the Hyatt the night of the disaster was one of the first all-female mariachi ensembles in the country, the groundbreaking Mariachi Estrella de Topeka. 6 of the 7 members were present at the Hyatt that night. Only 2 survived the disaster.
We walked in the front door, went up in an elevator, and walked onto the skywalk. We had barely walked onto the skywalk, not very far. And I was looking down at the tea dance that was going on. And just, before you know it, one minute it was normal, and then just like a second or two of chaos, and then I was like trapped.
4 members of our group, our mariachi, dying had a profound effect on not only all of our families, but our whole community, because our mariachi, we played at a lot of functions, social functions at our church. We played at the fiesta. We played 2 nights already of the fiesta, and that tragedy happened on a Friday night, and we were scheduled to play the next day. And so I don't remember this because I, of course, did not go to the fiesta, but all of the women in the kitchen were crying while they were making the food. Because at the fiesta, besides playing outside for the people, we also we always played for the kitchen help.
Mariachi Estrella had been quickly gaining recognition and already had an offer for a recording contract at the time of the disaster. No one knows how they might have affected history if they would have survived to continue their music. 30 years later, a memorial statue was erected on the front lawn of the Topeka Performing Arts Center to honor them.
It's very important that engineers and all who approve the plans and the building projects, everything be structurally sound and up to code, because it affects a lot of people's lives if someone is killed or injured because of negligence. And it stays with you for years. I mean, this has been over 30 years, and it's still painful to me, emotional pain.
As concluded by the investigation of the disaster, the collapse, and consequently the vast amount of pain and suffering caused by the disaster, was the result of gross negligence of the engineers responsible for the skywalk's design. The design did not meet code requirements and was not strong enough to support the expected load. After investigation, their engineering firm was closed, and several engineers lost their licenses.
There are many occupations where if you make a mistake, the implications are minor. If you're a medical doctor, if you make a mistake, you may kill one person. But if you're an engineer and you make a mistake, you may kill hundreds of people.
Engineers have greatly impacted society, luckily in most cases for the better. Thankfully, events like the Hyatt disaster are rare.
Without engineers, I don't believe a modern society would exist. We'd be much closer to I would anticipate that we would still be in the hunter and gatherer type mode of living off the land rather than being in organized groups in large numbers in a small confined space. Wouldn't be possible.
Most people are unaware of the influence engineers have on their lives and the trust they place in the hands of engineers each day. Most commodities of modern life, electricity, plumbing, cell phones, computers, televisions, microwaves, cars, bridges, skyscrapers, and countless other things, are designed and made possible by engineers. For people to maintain their basic right to safety in a world so dependent on products that have great potential to malfunction and cause death or injury, it is crucial that the engineers who design these products do not abuse their right to do so and respect their responsibility to do so ethically. Their success in this depends on their own vigilance, as well as the public's responsibility in observing and following intended uses of products engineers have designed.